Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed our first podcast. We have got a doozy of a topic for you today. Our snackable is about the power of discretion, handling sensitive information as a chief, as an EA, together, separately. Genise, why don't you kick us off?
So keep in mind, a snackable is a snack-sized secret to executive harmony. We want to give you fast and effective ways to build stronger bonds and boost creativity. That's what we're going to talk about today. And I want to let you kick it off, Anne-Marie.
You know what? You said something in one of our previous podcasts. We know where all the bodies are buried. We know all the secrets. Between the chief and the assist, 99% of the secrets are in that hive mind. Literally. I've had situations where only me and the executive knew something that was going on. And I know that you have experienced the same thing. And that's why it's sometimes a very lonely world, because you are being trusted with information that the organization is probably still trying to figure out, how are they going to deliver it? Is it going to go down the way they think it's going to go down? Can you help us come up with some solutions? Can you help us come up with some ideas? How are we going to talk to the rest of the leadership body about this? It sounds like it's cool to know all the secrets. I had to keep something from one of my admins, and let me be real about this. Like, it literally made me want to throw up, because that person is literally connected to me at the hip, and I was explicitly told, this stays with you. And that is very hard when you have an exceptional relationship with an exceptional person. And
because what is she going to think once she knows that you knew and you didn't tell her? Talk about testing trust, testing the bounds of trust between the two of you. It takes a very mature person and someone who can be truly emotionally intelligent to be able to say, okay, I get it. I understand why she didn't know. But the fact of the matter is, that sounds amazing in a business, in a business setting. But let's remember, humans come to work, okay? Not robots, not people who are, devoid of emotion, or devoid of feelings, devoid of any of these things that make us who we are as people. Mm-hmm. So knowing that you already have that dynamic of, does he value her more than me, or does he value me more than her? Like, in the back of your head a little bit, just sometimes. Not, it may not be dominating your thoughts, but it's there.
It's there.
It's there. So when you know that she knew and I didn't know, like, what? I'm offended. I'm mad. I'm all these things. But sometimes we have to take a step back.
Yeah.
And look at the big picture and be like, okay, I feel away because I felt like I was left out of the conversation. But if I can stand back and look at the entire picture and everything within the context of what it should be, I think that, okay, it's not what I would like, but I understand.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to get to. And vice versa, as an EA, sometimes there's something you may know, like a business decision that's going to be super impactful that I may not know about for whatever reason. But sometimes I know a personal situation that may be impactful to that leader that you don't know about, and we're working our thing behind the scenes because we have that type of dynamic. And the chief of staff are like, hey, wait, how come I'm not included? But there's a reason, just like there was a reason for you to be included in that, and there may have been a reason for me, because I know what the expectations are. I feel like as an EA, it's always important. Like, one thing I did with my leader through the years is I studied them. I studied him like you study a book. I studied his mannerisms. I studied his facial expressions. I studied his intonation in his voice. I studied everything because I wanted to know what all of these things meant, because I had a leader who wasn't necessarily he wasn't an emotional person at all, and he wasn't one of those people that yelled at you. When, and people have those guys that just yell at you and you know exactly what they're feeling. And I knew what he was feeling, but he didn't necessarily express it in a way that I would deem disrespectful of you raising your voice at me, right? So I needed to learn what makes him tick, what upsets him, because it seemed like nothing upset him, but stuff upset him. And as I learned how he talked, even if he talks through his teeth, he's pissed, right? I he does a long sigh. He's exasperated. Yeah. Like, I know all those things. And I think that it's super important that we as EAs know those things about our leaders and learn those things about even our chief of staff, so that you could know how to navigate those things and bringing them home. Why I may know some things that she doesn't know, or you may know some things that I don't know, because you have to do that on the business side. You have to know all the business, the crevices, the dark sides, the ups, the downs, all of that. So I think we have to really take a step back sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and I really like the fact that you said you studied your leader, because I would study my leaders, but my approach was a little different. I loved your approach. I absolutely love it. My approach, I would end up being vulnerable first about something. I remember one time I had to go to one of my leaders because they were using a contractor that nobody liked. Nobody liked.
But they liked them.
but nobody liked.
Right.
So when I found out from our team, I was like, do y'all like this contractor?
You're like, no.
The same basic questions. I didn't know the contractor. So I'm like, it don't make no matter to me. Nobody liked. And I went to my leader and I was like, I need to have a conversation with you. It's uncomfortable for me because we haven't worked together for a long time. But I think there's information that I need to share with you about our next steps with this contractor. This is the information I was able to gather. At the end of the day, I'm going to follow, suit how you want to proceed, but I think you should be aware of this. And my leader, she said, this made you uncomfortable? And I said, absolutely. I said, because I want you to feel like you're in a position where you can trust me and I can trust you. We don't know each other yet, but I'm letting you know this is how I do my homework. It changed our dynamic from that point, because she was like, first of all, she's going to go and study it out. She's going to figure it out. And she's going to tell me exactly how she feels. Either that leader was going to reciprocate or not. And she reciprocated. And we were in lockstep. There was nothing she kept from me, because she was like, I know that I can tell her. I know that she's going to figure it out. And I know she's going to come to me honest and real, so then I can express whatever I need to. Right. I think talking about discretion, and sometimes you know something, sometimes I know something, it does test the strength of the relationship. But I think the thing that you said, you need to take a step back and ask yourself, did she keep it from me because she could, or did she have a choice? Because you know that you're going to realize real quick, if something comes into my space, it's going to be locked up.
That's right.
It's not out there.
That's right.
Because I had to hold this from the person who, for me, was my most trusted partner.
Right.
I mean, it is not fun holding all the secrets.
No, and people think that it has this glamorous, connotation to it, but it's not, because you're like, I don't want to know this. I don't want to, because also, you can't even tell your family.
Yeah.
You can't even tell your family. You can't, at least in the roles that I've been in, you can't tell your family anything. You can't, you're like, we have this awesome new, can't tell y'all. Or there's a particular product coming out that's tinted, that one doesn't know about.
We need to explain to everybody what tinted means too. Tinted means that only a select few individuals are privy to understanding whatever knowledge is being shared. So you're in a tent, in the proverbial tent. And
Yeah, and not everybody. So you don't think that just because we work in the same group or we're on the same team, that everybody on the team knows. Tinted means select few individuals. It could be one or two, or maybe three people know what's going on with a particular thing. And people may know about the existence of that thing in some form, but they don't know the specifics of that thing, which they all want to know the specifics, of course. And you can't share that information. And I don't know about you, but when I was an EA, oh my gosh, we're not talking people down the line in the org. We're talking about the leads. We're talking about the direct reports to my manager. He's like, so what did you hear about this? Like, they gossip more than anyone else. So don't think that they don't gossip or want to know the little ins and outs of what's going on. They gossip, and you have to toe the line and keep it quiet. And I remember back, I don't know how many years ago this was. I think this is before we even had our first layoffs. So this is pre-2008. But we did do layoffs. And as an EA, I don't know, I make it a point to know my team. I think it's so important to know your team. And because how can I be an effective supporter of my team if I don't know who they are, if I don't know what's important to them and all those good things? So of course, along the way, I've met all these really wonderful people. And there was this one person who was just like the sweetest person ever, right? And they were so awesome as a person. But not so great in their performance in their role.
Oh, yeah.
And so, of course, as the EA, I don't know about in other organizations, but in my organization, we had to get all their stuff together. We knew that they were going to get riffed or let go. And we know all this stuff beforehand. And this guy always was coming by me, hey, Genise, how you doing? And he was sweet. And like, I knew.
That was the point I was going to bring up. So for our listeners out there, Genise has said riff. It's reduction in force. That's what that means.
Girl, yes, I'm the one who I throw the stuff out, and Anne Marie is going to give you the definition because I'm good for that.
But that's the thing. Like, even before layoffs were a thing, and it's sad to say that they're a thing right now, but before they were a thing, you had to be tempted to know what impacts were going to happen to your team. And sometimes the leaders on that leadership board didn't even know who was getting impacted. But you did, and I did. And I might not know that you know.
Right? That's the other thing. We may know the same information, but don't know that each other knows the information.
Right.
Ugh. It's stressful. Because you'll allude to something and I'm like, oh shit, I know the background. But you know the background, but I don't know that you know the background. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Like, how do I walk around this? How do I talk around this? How do I, make this happen? And
you're like, well, that's going to be canceled. Well, go ahead and set it out. Oh, that's going to be canceled too. Oh, we don't lose money on that. But
let's talk about reorgs, okay? Reorgs. So you're like, we have this meeting schedule and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yes.
But you can't cancel it because that's going to let off, you're going to let the cat out the bag. So you got to like sit there and everybody's like making all these plans and they're like going hard. So I have my deck and I'm like, they're going 10 toes down on that meeting. And you're like, oh God, this is going to be a whole waste of all of our time. Okay. And you can't say anything.
You can't even show on your face. So one of the things, once we hit this, I've always been remote. Prior to COVID, remote was just part of so I was always on camera and I'm always looking at people's faces. You want to have a good time, sit in a meeting and watch people's faces. I'm telling you, people don't realize how much they give away. You will not be comfortable being in a remote space because they just look and they're like,
So true.
Don't know how to be a poker face remote person all day long. What? Like, they will tell you everything on their face. And as a person who has to have discretion, you need to have a poker face. I need to have a poker face because, like you said, I'm I'm excited about this presentation. I'm flying my whole team in. And you're like, we got that trip.
And then you're like, I remember going back to my manager going, okay, how deep do I need to get into this? Because this person has booked this whole thing and we're going to lose a lot of money because these are non-refundable, or there's always some dynamic of like, we're going to lose our money, we're going to lose our shirt on this because we can't tell them now, but we know that this isn't happening. And all they could do is sit there and they're like, yeah, no, you can't say anything. And it's like, it's just the craziest. And like I said, with that guy who I knew I knew the day and I knew the time that he was going to be let go. And he would just come in my office and he would just be like, hey, Genise, how you doing? And da-da-da-da. And I'm just like dying inside. I'm dying inside. And when it finally happened, he was like, yeah, so, they let me go today. And my thing is like, I wanted to go, I know, but even then, I still couldn't say I knew.
You can't. So I have a question for you, because I'm going to share with our listeners what I do, but I want to know what you do when you're in those situations, because like we can look back because it's done. In the heat of the moment, I'm pulling out my hair. Like, I'm miserable. I'm absolutely, I don't want to talk to anybody. And the way that I'm able to kind of step away and not shoulder it, I literally have to shut off my computer. I have to not think about work. I have to go to I have a room in my house where I can meditate. Mm-hmm. I have to meditate. I need to do something that takes me out of what's going on. Because like I said, right now, you and I, we can look back and be like, but we know what's coming tomorrow. And we are not happy about what's coming tomorrow. And we can't tell anybody about what's coming tomorrow. And we have to find a way to center ourselves so it doesn't destroy us, because that is part of the job, is having this level of discretion with information. Like, it's great when you know the good stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not pretty, especially like with you and this employee who had a good relationship. Of course you want to say something.
Right. Like, get your life.
Handle what you need to, but you can't. And you feel like you're almost betraying people.
Yeah.
And that's like that's damaging to a person who's trying to do the best they can. And remember when we talked about, like, I want to be able to sleep at night. Mm-hmm. Well, I had some nights where I couldn't sleep. That's just the fact of it. I could not sleep.
Yeah. You know what I had to do, Emery? And I had to compartmentalize my feelings about certain things. And I probably do a really good job of it, because during the time that I was in EA, I had a husband and 6 kids that I had to raise, right? And I had to, when I came home, I had to be home.
Right.
And when I came to work, I had to be at work. Right. And so that whole component of having some information that I knew that other people didn't know, I had to compartmentalize and forgive myself, because I knew that I know this information that is not necessarily good for these people, but it doesn't make me a bad person. I'm just doing my job. I'm doing what is required of me, and I don't have any ill intentions. Anyone who knows me knows that I don't have any ill intentions. And if I could tell you, I absolutely would, but I can't, because it's a function of my work and the function of what I do. Because there's like really nothing for me, there wasn't really anything that I could do other than immerse myself in the other work that I need to do, but then also forgive myself. I'm not a bad person, because I'm not the one making the decision.
Yeah.
2, I'm the one fulfilling my role, and I'm not doing anything wrong or anything illegal. This is a function of my role. It even says it in your job description. You're an advisor, you're a confidant. You have to keep information that is privy to the business come to yourself. And I mean, look, we have stock, right? I can't even buy stock whenever I want to, or sell stock whenever I want to, because of the role that I have in this org. So, I had to forgive myself. I would say that was my initial response when I first had to experience that. But now I'm like, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not hurting anyone. It's not my decision. This is not to be laid at my feet. This is a function of what I have to do within my role is I have to keep things confidential and within the confines of whatever role that I'm in or whatever project I'm working on. And I can be there for that person after.
Yeah.
It all comes out and it's like, I'm so sorry. Gosh, it makes me upset that this had to happen. But I didn't do it. At the end of the day, I didn't do it. It wasn't my decision and I couldn't stop it.
Yeah, what's interesting also is when I've been in situations where and people were let go and I had friendlies, they would come back to me and be like, you probably knew and know that I'm now mad at you.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I was like, I don't know how I could have been effective in this role, betray this confidence because I wanted that I was taking care of you, but then like either get out of the role.
Right.
Yeah, that there's some hard things that you've got to do.
You just got to do it. Having this view into this area of the organization also helps us level set for ourselves and for others about like executives aren't just sitting upstairs willy-nilly sitting up here and deciding, oh, I hate her, so I'm going to fire her and I'm going to do that. Yep. Like there's lots of numbers, algorithms, things that go into play that have nothing to do with an individual per se, unless it's something particularly egregious or anything like that. But it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the executive having a personal vendetta against anyone. And I'm not going to say that's never the case, because probably in smaller companies that could happen. But do you want to work for somebody who operates that way anyway? I know that working for a company as large as ours, it's even sometimes out of the executive's hands. It's truly a numbers play. And we're just part of the equation, unfortunately, in some cases. And including our executive, unfortunately, it has to be the person who's part of that equation. And they get paid the big bucks to have to deliver that hard message and have to have people feel a certain type of way. And know that I don't believe that all executives sit at the top of their helm and just don't give a crap. A lot of them care deeply. And like I could say, looking at my leader, seeing the things that he did behind the scenes to try to make things happen, that they wanted one result, but he worked to make a different result happen. And I could say that when it came to even the first time we did our round of layoffs, I think we had 5,000 layoffs. That was the first time we ever did massive layoffs at the company. And my leader was like, I got to find a way they're doing important work. We don't want these folks to go away. They're doing really good work. He went and talked to other business leaders and negotiated. I'm going to take these folks who work on these things that really connect with the work that you're doing over here. Maybe you could bring them here and do that. But it was those type of moves that he had to make on behalf of the team, because he didn't want to have to be the one to give this hard message of you ain't got a job no more. Yeah.
Well, and I've had some interesting experiences with people who have been let go, and I'm not saying that this will happen for everyone, but they have pivoted into their own career and were able to find success greater than what they would have had they stayed in their existing role. And I think, we are brilliant individuals.
Yes.
Brilliant. And I tell my niece this all the time, you have options. They may not be so clear to you, but you have options. You were able to sit at the foot of your mom and watch her do what she did, and you cultivated some of the natural inclination you have into a skill that has made you a force to be reckoned with. My niece gets to watch some of the things that I do with my side hustle, as well as me, and she's like, oh, I could do that, or I could do that. And I was like, I only thought I could do that.
Right. No, it's so true. It's so true. I know this is a little bit off topic, but a lot of us have nieces and kids that are looking to us and see us in these spaces, and you just don't really understand how much they are absorbing the work that we do, even though we don't think they're watching all the time. We don't think they even understand what we're doing. My daughter is a direct example of that too. She doesn't know anything about being an EA, but I put her in the best schools or the best scenarios where she got the best education and the best social equity that she could, because I remember telling her when she was 13, I want you to sit in spaces with these folks that you can work with them, not for them. And dropping that seed of her knowing that I'm going to work with and not for, because like you said, words matter, has led her to, she's worked for one employer that I can recall. Well, okay, in high school she worked in retail, but after she graduated from beauty school and everything, she worked for one employer, and now she has her own business, has been in her own business for 10 years. And it's been because she's never had the mindset of working for somebody. It's always working with. I work with. I say that to say that it's just important as we struggle through all these things that we tell ourselves about. Am I a bad person because I knew this horrible thing and I didn't tell anybody? You're not. You did your job and you did it effectively, and you showed your descendants, whether they're your nieces, your nephews, your granddaughter, your daughter, that this is what professionalism looks like. This is how you conduct yourself, and there's reasons why things happen, and it's not always because of you, but sometimes it's in spite of the things that you have to encounter, that you're going to always be able to have that professionalism and adversity in your life and get through it.
Yeah. Well, and I think another thing is, in this era of people trying to figure out what they want to do, working in a space where we have to be careful of the information that we share, sometimes it takes a movement to make a change. You know, like you and I, we've been in a space where we've known the secrets. And even though it wasn't us that checked the box or did it, but we were the executors of whatever that secret was, maybe the next generation, because they are some amazing young people, they may be like, we don't want it to look like this anymore. So we're
Absolutely.
And so it's going to be different, because we saw how our parents had to deal with these secrets and like it. So guess what? We're not having these kind of secrets.
Yes. You know what? I love that you say that, because, you know, I work with interns all day long, right? I work with the youngest of our workforce on a daily basis, and I hear both sides. I hear the folks that are legacy and been around for a long time complain because they don't understand what the younger generation does or how they work or why they think. And I don't understand why they don't understand, but that's a whole nother reason. Another thing, because the thing is, like, we raise them to stand up for themselves.
Yes.
We raised them to not be taken advantage of. And then we get mad
when
they're not gonna let the company take care of them. That's what just blows my mind. That's what cracks me up. But I think as we think about these younger generations, they're going to look at things differently. Because even me, I've grown up in this. There is a place for us to be transparent.
Yes.
About what's going on. And I think even with the whole layoff situation, the company even saying, like, we want to be more transparent, but people are not feeling that we're being transparent. And I think that there's ways to have transparency without telling all the goods, and making transparency on the receiving end is about a feeling.
Yes.
Which is trust. That I know what's going on, and that I know that it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, I love transparency. I love that you brought up that word. And I think, like, we are trying to figure out how we can affect transparency. But again, I look at the younger generation and they're like, no. And there are times I'm reading articles and I'm falling out my seat. I was like, I didn't even think. Wow, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Right.
And the work space is changing, and it's interesting to be a part of seeing what could potentially change. But I'm hopeful so that there is more transparency. So then again, like I said, tongue in cheek, like, you and I might know the same thing that's going on, but we can't even talk to each other about it.
Can't talk to each other.
And in the tent, you and I can talk about it.
Yes. Can we be in a tent together? executive, could you please make sure that we're in this tent together so that we can remain aligned? Because it's about alignment too. Because you can know one thing, I can know the same thing, and we could be working in opposite directions, thinking that we needed to have a different result than the other person. And really, when you have a good partnership, it's infrequent that happens, but it happens. It can still happen, and it doesn't make either of you wrong or bad. It just is the reality of like, oh, I'm seeing it, interpreting it that I need to do this, and you're interpreting that I need to do that. And I think it's important. This is where that bond between the chief of staff and the EA is paramount. I believe that chief of staffs and EA should have dinner.
Yes.
Together. Not every time, not all the time, but those check-ins outside of the office, because that just strengthens the bond. And I don't subscribe to the belief that people that you work with are your friends. I don't. I believe they're your coworkers until you work in a completely different business. They're your coworkers always, but strengthening that relationship is never going to go wrong, because you guys will always be lockstep, and you guys will know each other, the ins and outs of who each other are. That can only work to your benefit if you use that information wisely.
Yes. This is where you and I are going to differ a little bit, because I do believe that you can be friends with your coworkers, but I don't believe they're your family.
Yeah. There's always levels, right?
Yeah. And I remember working for an organization where the CEO said, "We are family." I'm like, "We not family. We not family. You give me a text, you tell me I can go whenever, depending on I don't let I know there are those rare situations where you need to walk away from family because they're toxic. But in general, we don't walk away from family when things get hard.
Right. Exactly.
Sometimes are walking away from people when things get hard because of the algorithm or whatever's going on. And I'm like, we're not family. We could be friends, but we're not family.
In this club, we ain't fam. We ain't in that club together. And I get what you're saying, and I can agree with that. Look, we work at the same place, but I feel like our dynamic is different, right? Because we don't work in the same organization. And so I feel like we can be friends. There's nothing that I do that's going to impact your job or you do that's going to impact my job. And this is where I believe that working in the same organization, we're coworkers always, and we will not be friends. You don't know when you flip the switch and decide, I don't like her today and I'm going to do something. It may not even be intentionally throwing her under the bus, but somehow you get thrown under the bus. Like, you don't want that. And so I believe that you got to keep your eyes open.
Yep.
And know who you are around. Now, you need to know the people that you work with, but for me, am not your friend. We are coworkers. I like you. I could like you, but we're just not going to be homegirls, right? Till you leave the company or you leave into another organization or someplace else. That's just how it works for me. So, I think we are in unique situations that put us in these precarious roles that will have us having information that the other person isn't having. But the key is, the foundational key is trust. The foundational key is loyalty in some way, and ensuring that I may not know what she knows, or I may not know everything that she knows, but I think once, the goal, what's the North Star, and what can we do as a partnership to get to that North Star or fulfill that goal. And that's the thing. Are we aligned with what it takes to fulfill the goal? I don't necessarily care your journey to get there as much as I care that we can get there together and in harmony, and be able to show up well for our leader and have our leader show up well for his leader. Or her leader. I keep saying his. I'm not being sexist or misogynist, everybody. It's just my default. I've worked for a he for so long. It's just, I don't mean anything by it.
Good. Well, I hope everybody has enjoyed this conversation. I have. I always enjoy your insights, and you made me think about some things, and I just need to, it was good for me to hear from you. I always enjoy hearing from you. So
And I love hearing from you too. And I really appreciate the fact that you are so cool. Even though I didn't work with you, I watched how you interact with the EAs that you worked with, the leaders that you work with, and your approach to things. And I was always down for it. And I thought it was the best way. And I think that's why you've been so successful, because of your approach as a chief of staff and how you interact with your EAs and your admins. And you're such an empathetic leader. And you're a listener. You are an advocate. She is an advocate. Okay, don't play with her admins. She'll cut you. Don't do it. And I believe that they would do the same thing for her. Anne Marie, you're amazing, and we cannot leave without you showing off your wonderful project that you have done and getting people to get that book.
Get this book, The Chief of Staff. Thank you. Thank you for always for shouting out for this book, and thank you for the kind praise. Again, I cannot be successful without having a successful partnership with the EAs. I wish you and I had worked together, but we get to work together now because, honestly, folks, Genise, if I had a question, Genise, which is why I said even her former leader would be like, Genise. That's because if you need a detective, she will find out. She will find out the real. She will find it all out. Don't tell her no. She's going to want to know why is behind the no. And can you get to a yes?
How do we get to a yes? Exactly. How do we get to a yes? That was one thing when I had I think it was my second review with him. He said, you always come to me with these problems that you want me to solve, but I need you to come to me with solutions. And I was like, okay. Then he was like, don't tell me what I can't do. Tell me what I can do. And that was all he said. You know what? Say less. And that was where I was on that path from then on. And let me tell you, I have gone into interviews, the setup question in mind of like, okay, you have a leader who wants this, this, and this, but there's no clear policy. There's no clear guideline on how to do it, but you know that you need to make something happen. And I always use that interview scenario to kind of see how they solve the problem, because they're thinking that there's an answer. Like, oh, well, the policy says A, B, C, and D. No, that's not the answer. How will you solve for this and get them what they want? Or will they get what they want? Or will they get something similar to what they want? This is how I'm able to assess whether an EA has what it takes to go in there and take charge and make things happen that would probably otherwise be difficult to happen, but are possible to happen, because anything's possible.
Right.
That's the thing. Anything's possible. So I know we got off topic on that, but I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching us. Stay tuned for our next episode that will be coming up, and we look forward to hearing from you. Put your questions in our comments in our comment section, and we will be looking at them. We will be reviewing them, and if you have something that you would like us to touch on or you want us to focus on, let us know. We will be open to addressing any questions that you may have. And so don't be shy, and I look forward to talking to you all again, and of course talking to you, Anne Marie. You're always the best.
Everybody have a good day.
Thank you. You have a good one.